you up, but oh well. Good evening, and thank you for coming to the 10th Annual Lake County Film Festival. We're here tonight to talk about 7 short films about our marriage, as well as Prologue, the short that played before it. This is Justin Joseph Hall, the director of Prologue. How's it going?
It's going pretty good. How you doing, Nat?
Pretty good, pretty good. Yeah, I've talked to you more than anyone else this festival. You're always up to have a great conversation, I think.
That's right. I like movies quite a bit, so you know.
Well, now that people have had a chance to see yours, maybe they'll have some interesting questions. Let's see. What can you tell me? I know you didn't write the film, but what can you tell me about the idea that started this film?
Well, the idea that started this film was actually mine. It was a dream that I had that I was in the Rocky Horror Picture Show, and actually we just did a podcast kind of recording a little bit of this on my podcast featuring a short. But what happened was I dreamt that the first 20 minutes of Rocky Horror Picture where there's a car breaks down, they go to a house in the middle of nowhere, and crazy things happen, and that's the dream that I had, and I wrote it down. Well, the dream was pretty nonsensical overall, and I actually wrote it at MLB AM. While I was working there. It was a pretty boring job, and so in between I would start writing script ideas, but I'm not really a writer. So I met Piper at an internship. She actually worked for Lynn Nottage, 2-time Pulitzer playwright, and I was working for her husband. And so after a while, I read Piper's play, which is it's like a feature film length, which we were looking to make after this one. But she looked through a bunch of the stories that I wrote down, some dreams, some other things, and she thought Prologue was the most interesting one. And so she took it and made it her own and really made it more thoughtful ideas and more like her own ideas and the theme around marriage and the relationship. I had a theme about the relationship, but she really made it more women's rights themed. So
like the whole freedom that she experiences. So originally it was just like their car breaks down and they meet and they meet a strange character that sparks things.
It was actually went through so many interesting directions because Piper, so when she took it, basically everybody died at the end in my original screenplay. It's a little darker. Okay. That's how I dream, I guess. So what she took it is she added a lot more conflict instead of just mystery. And that had to do with the relationship between a husband and a wife. And Piper's not married, but she's been in relationships, obviously, like we all have. And so she wrote about that kind of conflict and also women's choice rights to their bodies. And also, she convoluted so many powerful themes, including dementia and gaslighting of women and not believing what they say. But it went through a whole bunch of other things, including like in-laws that were these mystical. There's this one, if you'd read all the versions of the plays, they don't resemble each other except for the beginning up through the car. And then we kind of didn't know how to end it. And I edited the script as well as the film. So she would do rounds in between her job, and then I would edit it and send it back a month later, and she'd redo it. And that process took about 2 years for the short film to get formed, because we're all doing it part-time in between our other stuff. So we put a lot of thought into this, and we wanted to make it really good because I also knew that I could only make this film. I had to make this film great the way that I wanted it once because I didn't have the money. This film cost as much when I moved to New York 8 years ago. This film cost as much to make as I made in a whole year. And that's when I had wanted to make it even before I was doing that. And so I raised all the money myself through our amazing people on Kickstarter. There's, I think, some people watching tonight, and thank you so much for all of that. And then the rest came from my own pocketbook, because, you know, this is a dream of mine, literally and figuratively. And I just can't believe that I found talent like Piper to write these words that help you understand the world better. And I think that's what we make art for, is to understand the world better. And that's what we do with my company, Forwin Films. So
sweet. And where did you find your acting talent?
that's pretty cool. So Claudia was actually the last person that we casted. So this guy came over to my apartment. My roommate had left one time and did an Airbnb for 2 days. Well, this guy came over to my apartment, and we went out and we're having a good time while he was there. And then I said, come to our podcast. We don't even know this other podcast that I do for with my friends. I'm Justin, the intern on that podcast. We don't even know. And so I said, let's go there. And he goes, oh yeah, I'm an actor. You're a filmmaker. You got to meet my friend. She's amazing. I was like, great, have her come tonight and then we can chat. So we went there after the podcast. We all hang out at the bar, and Claudia said, introduced herself and gave me all her stuff. And I said, send me your reel. She sent me her reel, and Piper and I both, the Piper Worley, who wrote the film, who I was talking about before, we both did casting. I mean, we were basically doing everything together up until shoot day, getting everything going along with Ricky Rosario. So we were doing casting, and we were getting it down to like 2 or 3 people. And Claudia threw her name in the hat, and I was like, check out one last person, Piper. And so I sent her the reel, and she's like, she's really great. And I mean, it was pretty evident right away. We had some amazing talent that auditioned for the part, and there were so many people that could have played it. But we chose Claudia because what we did was we had audition tapes for 2 sides, and then I would go and meet with all the people that I thought were worthy to meet with, which was quite a few people. I don't know, it's like 5 to 8 people. But when I asked Claudia about the part and connecting with Julie, she said that Julie, the character, had something that was in touch with nature, something on the inside that was bubbling, that has to do with the story. I don't want to give away the ending, but there's a shocking surprise at the end, we'll say. And so Claudia said that there was, and she would be here now, but she's in Italy, and the time difference is pretty insane. But she said that there was this connection, and she could feel whatever Julie could see in the clouds, she could feel within herself, something that needed to come out and be expressed. And that was something that I didn't hear from any of the other actresses, and it really caught my attention, because one thing that I look for when I'm directing is people who can add something that I don't see into the script, because that's how you get complexity in storytelling. So I didn't have like a particular way that Julie had to be there. It just had to fit in the story. However, the actresses saw that it fit in the story. And so when she said that, that was something that stuck in my mind. And we did a couple more rounds of, I think we did 2 live rounds of auditions, and Claudia nailed all of them. And so she won it out. But it was really that interview part that really put her ahead for me. I can't speak for Piper, but both of us always was like, yeah, she's moving on to the next round.
Sweet. All right. Well, thanks very much for sharing the film with us. It's a really interesting film. I do love the ending. I won't give it away if you don't want to, but yeah, it's a really strong work for her, and it makes a great relationship 2-pack with the feature. So
yeah, I think it's cool. I think it fits right in. It's a really good idea. I mean, eight stories about marriages.
We'll add it on. All right, thanks very much, Justin. I'm sure we'll see you later in the festival, or probably tonight at Open Chat, I'm sure.
For sure.
All right.
See you later, man.
Get you later. All right, now I'm going to bring out Chris Hansen, the director of the feature film, 7 Short Films About Our Marriage. Dan Beard, the producer, and Drez Ryan, lead actor. How's it going, everyone?
Great.
What's up, man? I'm good.
Dan, you're muted.
Yep, got it. It has to happen once, right, to somebody.
I wanted to start by saying, for those who don't know, we've kind of had 2 different eras of the festival, and Chris played in the first era. We showed his first feature film, The Care and Feeding of an American Messiah, and as well as his short, Clean Freak. And then I unfortunately disappeared, and the festival disappeared, and we just came back last year. So we missed some of his other fine work, but I was very excited to still get to show. There's not a lot of alumni from those early years. You know, I had a 7-year gap, and most people hung it up. You know, I'm
still plugging along. So.
Well, no, you're not plugging along. You're doing much better than you were. I think in 2006. You know, I mean, to see people get to make 3 features over, you know, what's it been, 6 years or something like that?
Yeah, total actually 7 short films was my 5th feature film over a 15-year period. So
you did 3 over the last 6, maybe.
Well, let's see. Blur Circle we finished with back in like 2017-ish, and then before that was Where We Started, which was, I think we shot that in 2012. But you know, so some 3 films over the past 6-8 years. Yeah.
You know, my festival, I pretty much only deal with independent film, and 3 features in 8 years. I think any of the people I talk to would think that that's a big success to be able to do that. So
I ain't complaining. So
I just want to say it's not that you're still plugging away.
Thank you.
You're doing pretty well compared to most.
Thank you.
So, well, let me start by asking you, you know, where. Okay, I'll say this. I have asked 2 rock stars who were married where they get the ideas to write such maudlin songs. You know, why they do that. And to be fair, both of them were divorced a year or 2 later. So I'm a little cautious about asking you, who I know is a very happily married man, why you decided to make a film about all these relationship problems.
Well, I think the real reason is that it's what I was trying to do is that show that the truth of a relationship is not that it's all happy times. It's that when you have all of these difficult times, it's how do you respond to them? And as a couple, are you mature enough, or are you going to mature into the role of mature husband and wife and deal with your problems in a positive way? Or you go, and more than that, are you going to stick it out? Are you just going to choose to say, okay, well, you know, we committed to each other and we're in this together. So to me, it was like every couple has problems. I mean, we've been married for more than 27 years, and we know a lot of people who've been married a lot of years, and they all have issues that they face, and nobody ever has it easy. It's just that on the outside, you only see what looks like a happy couple, and you know, we are a happy couple, but that doesn't mean we haven't had issues that we faced, some similar to the ones that the couple faced in the movie. You know, when we were younger and you know, in grad school and right out of grad school, money tight, you know, frustrated about how we balancing the budget. And I remember when Dan read the script on a plane with me sitting right next to him. We were headed to some event, and I was nervously waiting for his reaction. And he was telling me, you know, he said it felt like you were recording conversations I had with my wife. And I think the reality is many of us who've been in long-term relationships have had these kinds of arguments. And it's not a bad thing. It's just a part of marriage. And that's kind of where I was coming from with it, is just like, hey, this is marriage. You know, we just have to deal with it. Now, I will say the nature of making a movie about it is you've got to be a little bit more dramatic than real life, for me anyway. So the twists and turns that define the latter half of the movie are not, you know, from my marriage, but they're they're what I felt like I was depicting with a couple who just was not dealing with their issues head on.
So, is Dan the first step? Have you guys worked together before? Is he your go-to producer?
So, no, actually, the other producer, Brian Elliott, couldn't be here tonight because he's actually also a director with a short in another festival and was doing a Q&A tonight. So Brian has actually produced all of the work that I've done, all the features that I've done. And Dan came aboard on the last film as our first AD. Blur Circle was our last film, and Dan then stepped up and said, "Look, I want to produce with you if you'll have me." And so Dan came aboard as producer of this and was really I mean, I'll let him talk, but he was really instrumental in the early days from reading the script through pre-production and helping. He just took this on as a task and said, look, this logistics are going to happen and I'm going to walk through it with you. So
cool. Dan?
And he was also the first AD on this film as well. So
Dan, anything to say?
Yeah, no, I think at the beginning, I kind of had a producer hat on, finding all of the different locations. There were several different locations, and then we also had to deal with time, and because it was a 14-year period in the story, and so we had to deal with casting and figuring that out. And Chris and I would spend hours just looking over different reels and different people and things like that. And so and then when it came down to cinematography, we were sitting in the room with our cinematographer Aaron and going over shots and what would look good and everything like that. And but once we got into production, I kind of Brian was doing as much work as more with it as well, and I kind of took the producer hat off and put the AD hat on and just started working on schedule and getting it all done and getting everything in the bag. So it was great. And then then I ended up being the production supervisor at the end and helping get all of the the film and the clip to the visual effects and the titles and all of that stuff and putting it together and getting it together. So
Dan is describing, as I'm sure you know, Nat, what it's like to be an independent filmmaker.
Yes, exactly.
These are not all separate roles.
High as the hats can go.
Yeah.
Right. Drez, I definitely actors are the situation the area I have the least knowledge of and the least experience with. What can you tell me about reading the script and what you felt you brought to it? What called you to it? Besides the job? Besides
I'm working cool for a whole month. Hell yeah. No, honestly, man, it was kind of crazy. I remember talking to Chris about it, and I remember in that moment I was sitting on I was at my parents' house at the time and sitting on their patio because they got a nice house like that looking out at the mountains. So I'm like, I'm gonna go, sit and look at the mountains and read the script, and it's gonna be nice and peaceful. And I remember reading it, and it was weird because I was reading the exchanges this couple were having with each other, and every time he'd come back with something, I was like, yeah, that's what I would say. Yeah, that's what I would do. And it was just like it was so natural. I was like, and I felt, and it was really weird. It's the same thing like Dan said. I mean, that's the thing. But the difference is for me, at the time when I was reading the script, I was 28. And, so I have not had that life experience yet of being married for, extended period of time. I'm not married now. So it was weird, but I've been in relationships. So it was weird to also be able to put myself in that person's shoes because it just felt like, in that situation, that is what I would do. And so it was you asked me what I brought to it, and I honestly don't, this is going to sound really cheesy, but I don't feel like I had to bring much of anything to it because I felt like it was already there. I just had to kind of, sit in the space and be there with it, and everything else just worked itself out.
I think we lost Nat.
I think we know. Yeah, I do too. Well, let me ask you this, Drez.
Mm-hmm.
Working, you had that dynamic that you had to do as well with yourself and trying to put yourself into a situation that you really didn't have. But then you also have to work with another actor, China, who also did not have that experience. But yet the two of you combined, in my personal opinion, were able to really, just kind of knock it out of the park. So how was that, trying to find that dynamic?
It was nerve-wracking for me. I know that, just because I knew that for us to give the performance that the script deserved, we had to be extremely vulnerable with each other. And in my everyday life, I'm not great at being vulnerable. I mean, it's different. It was different on set because it was a place where it was a vulnerable space. And obviously you guys did a lot to make me feel comfortable. And the work required a lot of vulnerability. So it was a bit easier in that time. But in my day-to-day life, just, amongst individuals, I sometimes have a difficult time being vulnerable. So that was pretty much it. It was just, it was sitting down, talking with her. The rehearsals that Chris scheduled were really great, and just spending time with her off camera and just developing a trust and a bond, and saying like, hey, I remember saying this to her, like, hey, it's you and me, we're doing this together. We're a team, we're dancing, we're battling, whatever you want to call it. And, I trust you, you trust me. And, let's do this thing. I'm excited to work. And, China's obviously just astronomically talented. So, my part was just to keep up with her,
Yeah. I think, I'm just going to talk about some of these issues while we wait for, I think he was having an internet problem. So we'll just talk, assuming we're actually still live because it says we are. So
it says we are. Yeah,
I know. So hopefully people are seeing this. Otherwise, we're just talking to ourselves.
That's nice.
I think for me as a director, it was like, we're gonna have, you guys are gonna have to go to kind of vulnerable places, and so we're gonna have to create an environment where you're comfortable doing that, and that's partially about making you comfortable with each other, and you hadn't met before we started rehearsals a couple of days before shooting, and also that the set was a comfortable place to be, that and I think that one of the benefits of sets that I've had is that we're a team that likes to work together and be together, and so Dan and Brian and I are friends, and Aaron, who is the DP, Aaron Youngblood, is just a jovial and friendly guy. And so, you guys got along really well too, and we're joking around at times. So I think just that environment on the set being a very laid back, other than, every set is stressful, but it was generally laid back and friendly, and everybody was kind of happy. So I think that contributed to it. Go ahead.
Yeah, and I was going to say, actually, I think another thing that contributed to it, at least for me, is the call you guys made to do the reunion scenes first and start with overnights, because for me, when I get sleep deprived, I get loopy. so being up at that hour and working and having to be on, having to perform at 3 a.m., 4 a.m., 5 a.m. The edge was taken off, because I was kind of somewhat delirious at those times, because I'm not used to being up and working at those times.
Yeah.
So it actually helped me to not think about what's happening and not think about the stakes and what I'm doing. And if I'm doing too much of this, too much of that, I was just kind of just there in the element, experiencing everything, because, I was exhausted.
Yeah, we all were. So.
Oh yeah. That was really interesting. because we kind of went a little back and forth on Brian and I did on just starting with Knights and that scene because it's right in the middle of the film.
Hi there.
We just kept talking while you were getting back on.
Everyone is still
Just kept
frozen.
But it's in the middle of the film, and you found your relationship yet. So in the real world, like what we were just talking about with you in China, it was like, well, should we do this now, or should we wait and let them kind of build naturally in the first areas? But we ended up saying let's do the harder stuff first and see what happens. So, but I mean, yeah, it was great. It was a good choice.
Well, and I also think it also worked because the fact that obviously how the scene starts, where we had this big fight on the way to the reunion, so there's this distance between us. And since China and I had just met, naturally, there is still somewhat of a distance between us. Like, yes, we had the talk. Yes, we had the rehearsals, but we still are very new to each other. So we still don't have that, established trust and rapport. So the distance, I felt like in our real life relationship was good energy to bring into that. And also with it being like the first night jitters of, being on set and filming and being around these new people, it helped me with my nervousness around Amy's character, my ex-girlfriend. Because, I had to be uncomfortable and nervous around her. And I was like, I'm already nervous and uncomfortable because it's the first night filming. So that works too, man.
Oh, yeah. No, you weren't acting on that one then.
Not as much as I should have been. No.
Sorry I disappeared. I'm glad to see everything kept going smoothly. Well,
the show must go on. We ask each other questions. So.
I was worried StreamYard was going to kick everybody out. It's interesting that was your the first thing you filmed because as I went through this last time and made notes, I realized that chunk really that film, that short film, services as almost like a flashback. It's taking us back into the relationship in a way that's different than just a flashback. So it is interesting that the first part was not the first part chronologically, but it's about the first part chronologically.
And it was probably in its there were sequences that are harder to shoot like logistically than that, but it was probably among the harder things to shoot because it really works conceptually on paper and it really works in the edit, but it really doesn't work for actors to act it the way that they had to do. And I hadn't thought about that until we were shooting it because Drez had memorized his line all as one kind of big monologue because he wasn't having a conversation with China. He was just speaking. But I knew we were gonna have to cut it together, but because Drez had memorized it like a monologue, he hadn't memorized it with like the natural pauses that would allow us to cut after the individual lines that we were supposed to cut back to China. So I felt terrible because I was like, okay, you can't do it like that. I need the edit points. And that you're an editor, you know how hard it is to edit if the actor doesn't stop talking. And so it was a bit of a challenge for him. And we shot his first and then China's, I think, a subsequent night. And we had Brian, the producer, off camera reading Drez's lines to her. And that worked out, I think, a little bit better. But Drez, he had it memorized without her lines, so he couldn't really sit there and have somebody read her lines to him because it threw his rhythm way off. So, yeah, it was one of those like, this really, and I think it really does work in the film as cut, and on paper the ping ponging back and forth is just on paper, but shooting it was harder than I expected.
I can't remember. I mean, actors amaze me to the point that I have no questions because I can't even. It's like, what would you ask Stephen Hawking? You know,
Yeah.
I was on a game show and they asked me to come out and literally like say a sentence, and I couldn't. They gave up. They tried it like 5 times, and they just like, all right, we're just gonna move forward. We're not gonna get into one word.
That's
that we
you
want
know what
them to
that's.
say.
That's okay, man. That just means you're not as damaged.
I didn't realize we were going to get into the.
It goes like, you know, it's like mime, stand-up comedian, actor, and the hierarchy of damaged people, man. You know?
Wait, aren't those two actually just also actors? Really?
I mean, yeah, but they're much darker.
Yeah.
Hey, I have a question here from Justin, who had the short. It says here, hey, I'd love to know how you coordinated the production design. I also would love to hear about how you did the makeup over those years, hair, makeup, wardrobe.
So yeah, we had a great
beard.
team. Yeah, we had a great creative team. Those 3 different people: our production designer, Debbie Garcia, who happens to be married to our editor, Dave Garcia. Keep it all in the family. This is funny. I didn't even think about this when I said it. Our costume supervisor, Hannah Youngblood, who happens to be the younger sister of our director of photography, Aaron Youngblood. He recommended her. And our costume and makeup supervisor, department head, is Blythe Tierney. And did I say her last name right? I always mess that up.
Yeah,
I think so.
Yeah, Blythe Tierney. And she, Blythe, I'll start with that because she was the first one of those that we brought on because we knew that the makeup and hair was going to be so critical. Blythe had been gone to college with China. They were good friends. And she had worked on a film by one of our colleagues. So we reached out to her and she laid out a plan for how she thought we should do this, which definitely did not include prosthetics, which we weren't really thinking strongly about prosthetics because they're not getting old. They're just getting older. But she said, she convinced me that we really could do what we needed to do to age them with creative hair and makeup. And part of it was subtle stuff like her saying, as women get older, and I'd never noticed this before, by the way, until she said it. As women get older, they use more makeup because they're covering lines and things like that. And so part of it was having a very fresh-faced look for China when she was younger, and then having a more heavily made up look for her in the older years. And part of it was the hairstyle, which was very, she had long kind of flowing hair in the beginning, which was a hair extension piece. That then later she would go with her natural. China's hair was short at this point, so she'd go with that short look. And part of it for China too was definitely costume. Was like, she's wearing dance clothes, which make her look young and emphasize youth. And then like in that final sequence, she's wearing like a sleeveless sweater. It's kind of very conservative and it doesn't look old, but it looks older. So I think I was really impressed by how the combination of those things just totally changed the looks of the actors in very subtle ways. It really struck me when the trailer was cut together, because then you see them side by side with images of themselves at different ages. And it just was like wild how different they looked. And Drez was laughing about the beard because we had the joke I've told many times is that we had to structure our whole schedule around Drez's facial hair because he could only, we wanted him to have a full beard at one point just for the differentiation of the look. It makes him look older. And at some point, though, we're going to have to shave it off. And it's not like we could stop like Tom Hanks in Castaway and grow a beard back. We didn't have that time. So we had to shoot all the beard sequences first and build our schedule around that and build our schedule around the winnowing of the facial hair, because we went from the beard down to a goatee and eventually down to just the mustache in the final scene, which Drez was very happy to get rid of as soon as we were finished shooting.
God. The evil caterpillar, as I like to call it.
So the production design and the costume. I mean, a lot of the costume was built around colors that kind of accentuated their, just their attractiveness, their personalities in general. I don't think we were going for a particular color scheme with the costumes, but I may be misremembering that. I mean, we did go with a lot of greens, and I don't remember the reasoning behind that now that we're talking about it. But and part of it was just defining a look for for Drez. I remember we had costume try on. Just on Justin's comment, we had a lot of costume fittings for Drez just to kind of look at different casual versus dressy looks versus so we ended up with the Henley t-shirt several times because we decided that would be a look that Noah would like. So it was just kind of really trying it on the actor and seeing what fit the actor and what accentuated their frame and what made them look good.
Chris, what gave you the idea to split the film into short films?
Well, I initially came up with the idea, somebody, a friend of mine on Facebook or Twitter had posted something after having reached some milestone anniversary that they had survived through some raw real life junk was the phrase. And that phrase, raw real life junk, is what kind of inspired me. It stuck with me, what I was saying earlier, but that's what marriage really is making it through the raw real life junk and staying together. And so I started thinking about what's the junk? So I was almost basically, it dictated itself through like a bulleted list of like, what if I told the story of a marriage and they had to survive the raw real life junk? Well, it can't all be, a 1 year period or several months. Like most movies take place over a short period of time because that raw junk doesn't all happen right there. So that's when it occurred to me it had to happen over a number of years. And then I got the idea to structure it around several different, in my mind, I thought events or different stressors. So the first stressor was the wedding day and dealing with the father's racism. The second stressor was money, because I just knew money and jobs were definitely an easy one. I came up with not infidelity, infertility as the third one. Big difference. And so, but so at that point I was just building like what would these things be, and that we could dip out of their story for a while and then dip back in and see where they were, and then we were going to hit right when another, not crisis hit, but another issue hit. And that honestly, I in a lot of the reading, having people read it, I was unsure of how it was going to work to come back in and you kind of have to figure out where they are as a couple now, what's happened in the interim, because I didn't give a lot of exposition of, I tried to build the exposition in subtle ways so that you might be able to get clues about, like when they're at the reunion scene, we understand that they just had an argument about being late, which is something that we know was a problem for him, but so it was just like little things like that, but we don't really know everything that's happened since the end of part 3 to part 4. But there's a comment when his old girlfriend asks if they have any kids, and it's just the way he looks when he says no, that that issue of the infertility has never really been resolved, right? You don't know, but I think it's implied by what happens. So I just wanted to kind of dip back in and let you figure out where they were and figure out what was going on.
You kind of mentioned a singular stressor for each thing, but I feel like several of the stressors are almost the same, and that's just like capitalism, like staying married, under late stage capitalism.
That's true.
Juggling what you love versus surviving.
Yeah, I mean, I think the element that I added to it that was definitely not, part of my marriage in particular. Obviously, I was a struggling filmmaker, for a long time, but my wife is not a dancer, and she wasn't pursuing the arts as a career.
You're also not black, Chris.
I was. Chris reminded me of that often.
Well, that does get into a good question.
That's
To
a good.
go back,
Let's talk about that. Yeah.
no, to go back, I was wondering where that father's speech, where that father's speech came from.
Honestly, here's where it came from in structure, okay, but not in content at all. I remember when I asked, I didn't know my in-laws very well when I asked very traditionally for my wife's hand in marriage. And my father-in-law, he didn't really know me very well. And but he's a wonderful guy, by the way. So let me preface everything by saying that. But he talked a long time, and I was very intimidated about wanting his daughter to go to grad school and wanting, all these things. And so, he kind of provisionally gave me the approval to ask her. And so I just remembered on my end how intimidated I was by having to ask this man who was, my girlfriend's father, who was just an intimidating guy, this question that I had no idea how he was going to answer. So then obviously I decided that Noah was going to be black. It naturally lent itself to that being the conflict instead of what wasn't really a big deal in my life or in my little world. So I kind of just took that concept of an intimidating father-in-law and brought it into the issue of race. And, I wanted it to be, and I don't know how people interpret it, because I actually have talked to people who were involved with the film and watched the film, and I think people feel differently about the father-in-law. Some people feel like out and out racist, right? And other people feel it's a little more subtle and they understand what he's trying to say. I really wanted people to feel like, I think I obviously, from the way the film portrays it and eventually the way Madison feels about it, we fall on the side that he is racist. I'm not trying to back away from that, but I wanted to make his argument sound to him like a logical one, that it's difficult for children to be mixed race in our society, and he's worried about that, and he's worried about it for his daughter. It's not a good argument, but I wanted him to not sound to him like the bad guy, if that makes sense.
An interesting point. Go ahead, Dres.
No, I was just gonna comment on that. How, I feel like you executed that beautifully, and I like the comment you made about it being a logical concern for him. Mm-hmm. And I feel like it was beautifully done, because with most people, like you said, there is of course the caricature of racism, the blatant, like, I hate you person that you could portray any day of the week. But then there's that everyday person who does not see themselves as particularly racist or bigoted. They just feel like the world is a certain way, and they don't want their loved ones to have to go through the things that the world, will send their way if they involve themselves with these types of people. It's not I hate these people. Is that if I congregate with these people, then that will provide an extra challenge or more than needs to be, more conflict than there needs to be. And so it's just him being like, hey, I don't want my daughter to go through this. And so it provided this great struggle within myself for that scene of being, obviously, if the character being a young guy, a 19, 20-year-old kid at the time, and not fully being, confident within himself and thinking, hey, this guy might be right. But also with, hey, he's kind of making good points here. And then, it is rough out there. And it's just like, it was like, I was like a Jedi mind trick. It's like, you're right. This might be tougher than I think it is. Let me go talk to my wife for a second.
Yeah. And to make you feel like, I'm being selfish by making her life harder. And that's the Jedi mind trick, is like him, So so now you were going to say something. We jumped in.
Well, for anyone, if we're supposed to take what's being said at face value, what is to be thought of someone who raises their child not to be racist? If we take what she says at face value, and she's not just sort of obscuring things from her childhood or whatever, if he's actually taught her what she believes, and then to say that, what does that mean?
You know, I'll say something, but
say like I don't think I don't feel racist towards other people, but I don't want it in my family. I don't want it for my family. You know.
Well, I think you just described it. I think that happens more often than we as white, privileged people want to admit. I think that's how the place we are as a society continues the way it is, in my opinion. I don't want to speak for the Black experience. Obviously, I'll let Dres do that. But we talked about a lot of this while you were there, Dres. I mean, I remember you talked about walking alone around campus in the summer when it was fairly dead and around campus, and I don't remember, you relayed just your concern over that, and I don't remember if there were any issues that arose.
Yeah.
Were there issues?
No, there was no issue. I didn't walk around by myself as much, but I mean, it was, but the thing is, it was something I thought about just because, I'm not a student there. I don't have any kind of identification that can prove I'm working, for the school right now. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So it's just like, I felt like I'm just, a 28-year-old, non-college student, Black dude walking around this campus. Like, what are you doing here?
That's what I remember you saying.
Yeah. So there was like, I don't go here. I know I have no proof of identification that I'm working here. So it's like, if they ask me, what am I doing here? They have to go on my word that I'm, I don't have any ill means of why I'm present on this campus. And it's like that, obviously that made me nervous. It's just like, they have to trust me, this stranger, that I'm here with good intentions, and it's just, so there was that general concern, but nothing happened. It was all good. I had no, issues with anybody on campus, whether it was, students or faculty or anything. I mean, it was overall just a beautiful experience, and I'm very thankful for that.
Okay, we keep saying on campus, and I should reference the fact that Dan and I and Brian and several other people involved with the film are faculty at Baylor University in the film department, where we make our films through that. So that's why we're shooting in and around campus a lot. But
from somewhere else.
Dres was from North Carolina at the time. Now you're in Atlanta, right, Dres?
Yeah.
Yep. So Dres was not part of our team before. We auditioned a ton, video auditioned a ton of people from backstage, but Dres was actually a connection with another filmmaker that I know who had recommended him, and so he did a video audition for us. Just nailed it. It was like him and one other guy were my top two choices, and I was really leaning toward Dres, and I showed the tapes to Dan and Brian, and they were like, it's Dres. So that I'm just indecisive is the truth.
Did you shoot the? Well, I know how you want sometimes some backup. Am I crazy about that?
That's exactly what it was. Yeah.
Am I crazy? Can you watch? I don't have pre-screeners. I have post-screeners. I have people that I'm like, I think this works. Can you watch this shorts block and tell me how this is together?
Yeah.
Dres, did you shoot this before The Outsider or after?
Oh, you said The Outsider?
Yeah.
Oh, this was before. This was way before. I worked on The Outsider. That was May 2019.
Yeah, so it's like a year after we shot.
Yeah, it's about a year later. Yeah, so I mean, this was before The Outsider. So up until this point, I had like a one-liner on a show, Mr. Mercedes. But up until this point, all my
it's got the same character. I saw that on IMDb. I haven't watched Mercedes yet, but you're playing both. That's a continuation. They're connected. That's so weird.
Oh yeah, Mr. Mercedes and The Outsider and all that. Yeah, all Stephen King stuff. Yeah, man.
Yeah.
That definitely was not planned. I don't just happened like that. But so up until this point, working on 7 shorts, all my, most of my film experience was, I did a lot of like short films and I did like small parts on independent features, and I did a lot of theater and then like web series and stuff like that. So this was to date, obviously my biggest, job and my biggest responsibility. So it was, it was definitely, it was a wave, man. It was definitely a wave. And I was just like holding on for dear life throughout the whole ride, dude.
It's kind of a daunting task. I mean, you're carrying a movie all on yourself, not all on yourself, but
I'm about to say, yeah, China.
It's basically
China,
just the two of them on the screen almost all the time.
Yeah. I mean, luckily, I did get to kind of. I will say, I got to get a little bit of experience with that type of situation when I did a play in Asheville, North Carolina, called The Mountaintop, which is written by Katori Hall, which is a fantastical depiction of Martin Luther King Jr.'s last night before he was assassinated in his hotel room. And basically the entire play is MLK and this housekeeper having a conversation the entire night before he goes out in the morning and is assassinated. And so it was just my co-star Kirby Gibson and I on stage, for hour and a half. And so it was a great experience with that kind of energy, with just like, it's you and me out here doing this. We're dancing, we're working, we're moving. We have nobody else to rely on. I got you and you got me. That's it. So it was great to kind of that space I was somewhat familiar with it just being, me and this other person, doing this dance together. So that I did have that level of experience to bring to it.
Cool. I have a question. Chapter 5. The hot dog, hamburger, the bun commercial.
Yeah.
Is he being unreasonable?
I think that's a very good question, and I intentionally left it kind of vague. Here's the thing. So we drew largely on our DP's experience because he was coming off a 3-year stint working as an in-house producer and cinematographer for a marketing company. And that scene was like written with his kind of collaboration, even down to the phrase "bite and smile," which is, I had never heard of that until he said it. And now, of course, you can't watch a hamburger commercial without seeing a bite and smile.
Bite and smile, man.
But he talked a lot about how, ads companies are looking to brand in different ways by telling a short story, a short film, essentially, that creates an association with a brand, as Noah is trying to tell them that. So in other words, they're pitching this concept of a different kind of ad to a company that's a very traditional company. The truth is, my interpretation is Noah is right. It's going to be a great ad, and it's gonna change the way people think about this kind of ad and this kind of company. But if the client wants what the client wants, the client gets that. And so, and that guy who plays the ad, the company executive is like, he was just perfect. I don't get it. So yeah, I think in the end, he doesn't take the loss gracefully. So we'll put it that way.
Well, he would have been able to make his whole story, but then he won't give that last 5 seconds. Yeah. He doesn't want to add the little thing that compromises his artistic integrity. And I think it is a hallmark of Noah's kind of character that he is struggling with, making the compromise that frankly, it's not his film. It's not his, it's not his artistic vision. It's a commercial, but a commercial of a certain type. And you're right. The guy who his boss or the account executive over that account is saying, look, we get to do a really nice piece. You just got to add that little thing at the end. I think it's an argument that is for an artist, and for us even sitting here talking about it, it's like it is a legitimate argument. That does it ruin it? Does it kind of defeat the whole purpose of doing it that way? And I probably have been on both sides of that argument at different times. So cool. From the end, are we supposed to take that this is a new beginning? Are they going to tear up the document?
I like to leave it vague intentionally. Obviously, I didn't answer every question. Don't worry, Drez. I'm going to be real careful here with my answers. So you haven't seen some of my films that that didn't get into the festival because you guys weren't running, but my last few films have really ended on fairly positive but ambiguous notes. And I think that the note I was trying to end on was new beginning, but whether or not that means new results is entirely up to who they are as people now. If that makes sense.
And also kind of doesn't matter, but right? I mean,
yeah.
Although unless you're making another 7 short films,
Yeah. I often think about returning to character. I mean, because I fall in love with these characters and wanting to know what's going to happen next. And I actually did start writing a sequel to one of my previous films that nobody's ever seen the script for because it isn't finished in any case. But these are characters that I would love to return to, but to do that I would have to think of a way to not repeat the structure or the idea of the first one, but come up with something just as kind of invigorating to tell a story. Also, probably need to wait 10 years so they look a little bit older because China and Dres never age.
No, see what you got to do is you got to go the Marvel route, man. You got to make like 6 more films, and then you get all us together for like this
the Chris Hansen cinematic universe.
Yeah, exactly. You get all us together for like this big mega rom-com, and then it's just gonna blow up, man.
Yeah, but like Matt Brumlow was in like 3 of them as different people, so that's going to be a little bit of a problem. So
Dude,
he plays Madison's ex-boyfriend in this one. So
yeah, hey man, if they can recast the Hulk with Mark Ruffalo right after,
and Terrence Howard.
Yes,
yeah, right. Terrence Howard, Don Cheadle. That was seamless, man. Nobody noticed.
And they put what's her name in as 2 different people.
Who's it?
Was it Taraji? Is multiple people? She comes up to him in Civil War. Right after he gives a speech and says, "My son died." She played someone else in a different role.
Oh yeah. I can't think of the actor's name, but yeah,
it wasn't Taraji.
No, it wasn't.
Not Taraji, no, but I know who you're talking about.
Whoa, it was
Anyway.
Alfred Woodard.
Okay.
The reason I asked is because I really love this moment and this idea that it's only when you have nothing else to lose that you can really be truly honest.
That's what the last scene's about. Yeah.
And it's interesting the idea that could then lead to you actually not losing what that the honesty could then reverse that situation.
Yeah, I think that the way Dres and I talked about his approach to the final scene, and they both had some heavy lifting to do in that scene. Him to do, to be as honest as he had to be, that would sound sincere and not like somebody who was trying to play her, which is not that, it's not written that way at all, but, inflection can change the whole thing. I mean, Dres had to be completely like laid bare and say, I've got nothing to prove and nothing to gain. I know this is over. I just want you to know from the bottom of my heart that I'm sorry. And then I realized where I screwed up. I want you to know for you. I want you to know so that, you basically feel better about, putting these papers in front of me. And it was a very selfless thing. And of course she has to take that and be angry with it and kind of figure out how to respond to that, because I'm not, like, this almost like this is not fair that you're now saying these things. And then in the middle of that speech, and this is the challenge for China, and we even pinpointed, here's the moment. I think, we looked at it several times and said, here's the moment where it switches, where you're just like, you make a decision, that's hard for, I mean, I shouldn't say that's hard for an actor to do, because I'm not an actor. Maybe it's easy for you, but it sure looks hard for an actor to imbue the emotion into those moments and then flip that, into something else. I'm just blown away by her performance in that scene.
So it was incredible, man. It was incredible.
It looks easy when you guys do it, and that's how I know you guys are good at it. You know?
Well, I'll tell you, China, it's hard for an actor to get worked up like that, to do, the emotional stuff and the tears and everything. And she was like, we normally go wide shots, medium shots, close-ups. And she was like, close-ups first. And we were like, yeah, absolutely. And I think after the third take, she was like, it was either after the second take or the third take. She was like, I got maybe one more. I mean, it's impressive to me that an actor knows that. And I was like, yeah, look, we've got it. Let's do one more to see what else comes. But it's there, and that's on me as a director to be able to say, I know that we have what we need. Let's try for one more. So that you pushed and gave it everything. Because I know that's equally important for actors, that they don't walk away thinking I could have done better in that scene.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, that's what you're saying. Like you're blown away by how the actor knows when they I only have one more left in me, and it's funny because like it's our job to be very in tune with our bodies and our thoughts and our emotions. So we have to be aware of like, what more do I have to give right now? It's not even just from an emotional or mental standpoint. It's like biologically, it's like I can't cry anymore. I like all my fluids, all my fluids are depleted. Like I know I can't do this. So I mean, obviously I'm sorry. I'm just thinking about that scene, and I remember just sitting across from her and watching her go through that whole evolution of, I wish this was this way. I wish I could do this, but I can't. I wish I could accept this, but I can't. And just seeing her go through that step by step of the things she wished she could have done, and seeing the regret and in her eyes and the pain of the things she knows she could have and should have done. It was just watching her do it, man, it was so easy for me to go there with her, because it was like she really was making me break down because of how much she was hurting in those moments. And it felt so genuine and so real, man.
And Dres seemed so capable of getting that one tear coming right down.
That's the Denzel glory tear, man. They teach that in black acting classes, the Denzel glory tear.
Sorry, Dan, we interrupted you.
No, it's okay. I think the thing for Dres, in my personal opinion, is the phone call.
That scene.
That for you, I feel was, at least for me, it was emotional every time. And I mean, and so for me, I thought, for you, not only are you doing this, but you're doing this in a hot parking lot in the middle of Central Texas. But I mean, the confusion, the panic to me is and it was so subtle, but it was just right there, like, oh God, no, don't. And so
it's a stages of grief thing. It's like denial, bargaining, that I thought, he pulled off so well, to do just camera on him, nothing to cut away to. It was just him. So
thanks, guys.
Yeah. And it was definitely something that I, Chris and I discussed, whether we cut to something else or just leave it on there. And I know it was just like, no, this was
just great. Yeah. It was written to just be on him, but then, to hedge our bets, we shot the other side of the conversation with China, like back at their apartment. But it just was better to not cut away. The tension stayed stronger if we just stayed on him.
Yeah.
Well, we did cross the hour threshold, so we'll probably start wrapping up. I know it's kind of obligatory, but what is next for the film, and what's next for everyone else?
We'll be at the Real East Texas Film Festival in Kilgore, Texas next week or next weekend. They're doing some limited in-person screenings, socially distanced. They have a nice big theater there in Kilgore. a restored old theater, and also virtual there. And we've got some, maybe, we're waiting to hear back from a couple that will happen in the new year. We're talking distribution, dotting the I's and crossing the T's on a contract right now. So we won't have dates yet, because I have no idea what their release plan will be. But once we get all the contracts signed, then hopefully sometime in the first 2 quarters of the new year, we'll be available somewhere.
Sweet.
So I'll make sure that you can communicate it to your audiences too.
Yeah, no, always. Actually, one of the things I really dug was I did after last year is I've got a full text list up, and then I just update them to links that'll take you right over to where they're available.
That's great.
So whenever that's ready, that'll be awesome. Drez, is this lining up some work for you, or?
The old adage, man, the grind never stops. Obviously, pandemic definitely the work dipped, but it definitely is coming back. It's on the rise. As far as things like obviously concrete schedule, I am working on a film. I believe it'll start shooting beginning of April. With a production company I worked with before called Dark Red Horror. That's going to be a lot of fun. And other than that, man, like I said, it's audition. So,
awesome. Well, I can't imagine we won't see more of you soon. I'm sure maybe in the MCU.
Thanks,
or
man.
something like that.
Black Panther 2 movie. I would love to see you in Black Panther 2.
You know what? My dreams are almost as big as my head. So
Dan, anything? You mostly just produce for Chris, or?
No, Dan's a documentary filmmaker, and he's working on a thesis film documentary for finishing his MFA right now. So,
yes.
What's up?
It is about it's about disabled veterans getting benefits through the VA. I mean, that's the short version, but just the complications of that. So I've just started kind of on that one. I'm finishing up another documentary, short documentary on a local Waco artist who burns.
Wood burning.
Wood burning. And she makes some really beautiful pieces. So it's kind of more of an experimental type documentary. But yeah, those are my 2 projects right now.
Cool, great. Well, I'll look forward to checking everybody's stuff out, man.
Yeah.
Hey, Nat, thanks for having the film, and thanks for having us for a great Q&A.
Yeah, man. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. It's I think we talked about it earlier, but as someone who has really done what's in there, that push, that drive to do things that are different, and having everything else kind of fall by the wayside. That's my life story. I mean, that's a part of my life story. That's that's a part of my life from 20 to 10 years ago. I've got I'm in a similar story. I was married. I made similar mistakes and had similar struggles. So it really, what did I say? Work as something you love and passion costing money. Those are all things that hit really, really, strongly to me. So it's
thanks. I'm glad it resonated with you. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Well, have a great weekend. I hope you guys check out some films if you want to. I can help you guys with that. And we'll see you soon. Thank you very much.
All right.
All right.
Everyone.
Yeah, man. It was great. Thanks, guys.
Bye.